talk about, especially in a ministry like this one and like the one that we have at Fort Lewis. And we can talk about discipleship, but sometimes struggle to define, well, what is it? So I looked up the word discipleship in Webster's, and oops, no I didn't. So with you guys, does anyone want to try to take a stab at just defining what discipleship would be? Maybe in a one-sentence definition. And you can get it wrong. This is only going out over the internet. So if you do get it wrong, they can't see who it was that said it. Yes.
Helping people become like Jesus Christ.
Thank you, Chris Bean. That's a great answer. And we could probably, yeah, go for it.
Training people in the same manner you've been trained to raise them up as a Christian.
Okay, so doing for someone else the same thing that was done for you. Well, I took a stab at it myself, and I don't know that any of these are going to be the legitimate answer. But for me, discipleship is the code that followers of Christ seek to live by. So, and in Luke 6, I think Jesus really begins to flesh that out for us. So, let's get the setting before we jump in. We're going to actually start in verse 12. So in Luke 6, if someone could read for us Luke 6, verses 12 through 16.
Now it came to pass in those days that he went up to the mountain to pray, and continued all night in prayer to God. And when it was day, he called his disciples to himself, and from them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles. Simon, whom he named Peter, Peter and Andrew his brother, John, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called the Zealot, Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot also became a traitor.
Okay, so what's happening here as we start into Luke chapter 6 is that Jesus has just called his 12 apostles. So Jesus had a larger group of disciples. From those disciples, Jesus handpicks 12 that he names apostles. And he's just spent the whole night in prayer choosing these 12 apostles. So let's go on and read verses 17 through 19.
He went down with them and stood on a level place. A large crowd of his disciples was there, and a great number of people from all over Judea, from Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon, who had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. Those troubled by evil spirits were cured, and the people all tried to touch him because power was coming from him and healing them all.
Okay, so as they come down off the mountain, this is kind of the way it looks. You've got Jesus at the center of this crowd of people. And he's surrounded by three types of people. The first group of people that are around him are the apostles. The 12 guys that he has just handpicked, they're coming down the mountain with him. But there's another group, a larger group, that the text refers to as his disciples. And then finally, there's an even larger group of people, which some versions call the multitude or the crowd. And the crowd was made up of two types of people. There were those who had come to hear him. So one group were those who wanted to hear Jesus. And what was the other group? To be healed. And so the first thing that we see in this passage is that there were lots of people around Jesus, but there were three basic types of people around Jesus. And these three types were really motivated for different reasons. For the apostles, their motivation for being around Jesus was a desire to be like him, to join him in what he was doing. And that's why Jesus chose them too. So the motivation was mutual. Jesus wanted these 12 to be with him so that he could send them out to preach, to carry on his work. So the things that he was doing, these 12 wanted to be around him because they wanted to become like him. They wanted to do what he was doing. That was their motivation. This greater group of disciples, they were motivated to be around Jesus because they wanted to follow, they wanted to live their life based on his teachings. They wanted to follow his teachings. The crowd was made up of two types primarily. Those who were motivated by curiosity, they wanted to hear this guy Jesus. So there were the curious. Is that how you spell curious?
O-U-S.
By the way, I'm from Kentucky, so anytime this kind of thing happens. But I noticed that it was wrong. So I get some credit for that. Some who wanted to hear him, they were curious. And you can imagine it, Jesus is out there, he's traveling around. People hear about this guy who's out in the desert, or he's by the lake, and he's this great teacher. And he heals people sometimes, and sometimes he casts out demons. And so if you're just the average guy in a small town in that part of the world, and you hear about this guy, and you've got the weekend off, you might look at your buddy and say, hey, let's go see who this guy is. Let's hear what he has to say. So they were curious. But there was another type within this crowd who wanted to be healed. And so this was the needy. And they were motivated to get around Jesus because they had a real need, and they were hoping that Jesus could meet that need. So that was their motivation to get around Jesus. Maybe they also wanted to hear him. Maybe they wanted to follow his teachings. Maybe they wanted to become like him. But the real reason they were there is because they had a deep need that they were hoping Jesus could meet. And I think that those same three types of people are involved in our ministries today. The same three types of people who were drawn to Jesus 2,000 years ago, those are the same three motivations that we find in our Bible studies, in our churches. There are some who actually want to join Jesus and do the same things that he's doing. There are some who just want to follow, they want to live their lives by his teachings. They want to follow his teachings. And then there are some who are just curious. Or maybe they have a deep need, and they're hoping that being a part of this group and learning from Jesus will meet that need. I think it's important to understand that there are different motivations, and when we come into a group of people, that the people are there for different reasons. So that when we're trying to help them, we're trying to help them in a way that is based on their motivation for being there. We're not trying to heal an apostle or to train a cripple. To realize that people are there for a reason, and if we can know why they're there, if we know the reasons, we can help them. And Jesus seemed to be a master of that. He healed the people who wanted to be healed. He trained the people who wanted to be trained.